Minuteman Missile, National Historic Site, Partners for Peace. Black and white footage of people filing through a doorway. A bright explosion.
The Cold War had been going on for 16 years.
Military truck towing a missile, a crowd waving and cheering as they passed by.
And the nuclear arms race was ever present in the lives of average Americans.
Aerial photo of major road systems leading to many sites and smaller roads leading away.
With the Cuban Missile Crisis, recent in our history, there was a renewed effort to get families to plan for this impending attack.
A room with a bunk bed, trash can, and bookshelf.
Our national defense had switched from bombers to ballistic missiles, and the missile gap was widening.
A large plane flying through the air. A road leading through a flat prairie.
Beginning in 1960, the property was surveyed by the United States Army Corps of Engineers and purchased from the original landowners.
Older man wearing glasses and a black sweatshirt sitting in a room with white striped wallpaper. William Bielmeyer, local landowner, owner of Bravo 7.
You know, as an American, having a family and interested in the future, it was an anxious time where you tried to believe that we better hurry up and get this done, and we can defend our country all the better if the time comes.
September 11th, 1961.
3 men in military uniform and 1 in a trench coat stand in front of a banner reading Partners for Peace.
A small explosion occurred in the Black Hills of South Dakota.
Black and white photos of construction sites.
This was a symbolic groundbreaking of the new 44th Missile Wing. The construction occurred over the next 2 years.
A map of South Dakota showing Rapid City and Interstate 90, an area outlined in red titled 68th Missile Squadron, area in blue 67th Missile Squadron, area in green 66th Missile Squadron.
With 150 missile silos and 15 launch control facilities dotting the hills and the plains of South Dakota. By November 1st, 1963, all sites were declared operational by the United States Air Force.
Black and white photos of construction site with a long building and many trucks.
Here we are outside the launch control facility, Delta One.
Park ranger wearing gray shirt and gray felt hat, long beige building surrounded by prairie. Chris Wilkinson, park ranger, Minuteman Missile, NHS.
This building housed 8 enlisted Air Force personnel who worked shifts of 3 days on before they had a corresponding 3 days off. And their mission at Delta One was to support an underground launch control center which contained 2 Air Force officers known as missileers who could launch Minuteman nuclear missiles at a moment's notice. Let's go take a look inside.
The above-ground portions of this structure were designed to support the missile crew 31 feet below ground.
Photos of Air Force personnel working in rooms with large mechanical equipment.
One portion of the building contained a backup generator, water treatment system, and environmental controls.
Park ranger in room with sofas, card tables, and television.
There were always 8 support personnel on the top side. One thing they had a lot of was time on their hands. As one former missile field worker once stated, our jobs were nothing more than hours and hours of sheer boredom, punctuated by seconds of panic. How did they pass those hours of boredom? Well, there was plenty of recreational equipment on site. They could shoot basketball outside, or on a cold winter's day, they probably went inside and lifted weights in the weight room. They also had this room. It was called the day room. It was a place to rest, relax, watch one of several channels they got via satellite, or they could kick back and perhaps read a book.
Photos of rooms with orange and brown carpet, bunk beds and desks, a kitchen with stoves and ovens, a room with large windows and desks.
The personnel that stayed above ground operated on 3-day shifts. These were a facility manager, who was responsible for the maintenance of the site, 6 security police, responsible for security on site as well as at the missile silos, and a cook, who provided up to 4 meals a day. The Security Control Center was one of the most important areas at Delta One. This room was manned by a Flight Security Controller, or FSC, who oversaw all radio and phone transmissions for the topside, as well as being head of the security police. The FSC was also in charge of access to the site.
Man in blue Air Force uniform speaking on a phone at a gate outside a green-gray building.
When oncoming personnel pulled up to the gate, they would identify themselves to the FSC, and once their information was verified, the FSC allowed them entry by unlocking the gate by remote control.
Beige building and garage with prairie and snow and blue skies dotted with clouds. Park ranger in room with large green and gray computer racks, 2 red chairs, and desks with many control panels and buttons. Red metal box with padlocks.
To carry out a launch, the missileers would first have to receive what was known as an emergency war order. That would be signaled by what has been described as a warble tone coming over speakers at their console. Following this warble tone, there would be an encoded message. The missileers decode and authenticate it. Once the commander and the deputy agree that it is an authentic message, they come over to this red lock safe box. They each have their own separate combination locks on it. They take them off very quickly. They open it up. Inside, they find a set of keys. At this point, the deputy inserts their key. Okay. At this point, the commander would insert their key right here. The key turn slots are 12 feet apart, so no one person can turn the keys by themselves. They would then do a countdown. At the end of the countdown, they turn the keys simultaneously. While this is occurring, the commander will keep an eye on their console, and there's a series of lighted panels for each of the 10 missiles of the Delta flight. When the missile away panels illuminate, the commander is going to know they have carried out their primary mission. They will now await further orders by radio. They are involved in a nuclear war.
Park ranger standing in the prairie, a gravel area inside a chain link fence with a glass enclosure and a white pole.
Imagine, for nearly 3 decades, South Dakotans, tourists, truckers, people just like yourselves drove up and down Interstate 90. But many of them never realized that they were driving through a war zone. But with the advent of intercontinental ballistic missile warfare, the front lines of the Cold War were everywhere. No one was safe. But if one of those innocent passers-by had glanced at the 8-foot-high fencing surrounding Launch Facility Delta 9, what would they have thought that was contained within it? Perhaps some type of complicated water well? Maybe a substation for the local power supply. That's what you might think or notice at a glance. But believe me when I say, to the imagination, this could be the end of the world. Let's go have a look at where imagination meets reality.
The above-ground facilities at the missile silo consisted of several structures, including antennas, security sensors, and hardened facilities containing support equipment.
A cement pad in an area of gravel with hatches and a white pole sticking up, prairie on the other side of the fence.
The missile was housed in a circular, reinforced concrete silo known as a missile launcher.
Looking down a white tube at a long missile with a green nose cone.
Around this launcher were 2 levels containing communications and backup equipment.
Diagram of a missile silo and the rooms underground around it.
This also afforded the maintenance teams easy access to the missile without opening the 90-ton blast door above.
Man in a green uniform standing over a hole beside an open hatch, lowering something down inside.
The Minuteman II missile replaced more cumbersome and dangerous liquid-fueled missiles.
Enormous missile standing erect on a launch pad above ground. Titan missile launch, missile igniting and flying in the air.
Such as the Atlas and Titan. These liquid-fueled systems had a slow launch response time, were extremely dangerous to operate and maintain, plus they required launch crews on site. The Minuteman was a technological wonder because of the solid fuel technology which propelled it.
Minuteman missile launch, missile resting in a long tube in the ground. Cable comes off the missile and is retracted to the side. From above ground, flames bursting out of a hole in the ground and a missile flying out of it.
Making it perfect for America's strategic defenses. It could lie dormant for weeks, months, and years on end, with limited maintenance and upkeep.
Jet landing on the ground, large long object being lowered by crane from ceiling of warehouse.
The Minuteman could be mass-produced at 1/5 the cost of liquid-fueled systems, making it a cost-effective option.
Men and women in blue uniforms working at green and gray computer racks and desks with red chairs.
It was unmanned and remotely controlled by personnel stationed several miles away. Most importantly, it was a hair-trigger launch response. From the time missileers first responded to an emergency war order message to the moment when the missile was launched from the silo could take less than 5 minutes.
Soviet Topol missile launch, missile rising into the air with a burst of flames.
This meant there was no way the Soviets could destroy the Minuteman with their own nuclear weapons before it would be launched. Thus, the Minuteman served as an excellent deterrent to keep the Soviets from ever launching a nuclear first strike against the United States.
A large concrete hole in the ground surrounded by gravel, concrete lid on tracks to the side.
During the Cold War, there were 150 of these silos located across the western plains and Black Hills of South Dakota. As part of the START missile treaty in 1991, the sites were deactivated. The Air Force removed the missiles from their silos, imploded them, and as of 2008, they have sold the majority back to private landowners.
A gravel pad surrounded by chain link fence in the prairie, an explosion inside the gravel area sending smoke into the air. Concrete and rubble remains from the explosion.
While they got their land back, there were numerous restrictions that severely limited what could be done with this property.
No construction within the compound and around it for a certain distance. It was written in there that you could not dig more than 2 feet deep for any reason.
Older man sitting in a room with white striped wallpaper.
That in the agreement, and this is a quote, that when the government is done with the use of these missiles, they will return the location back to the prairie.
A small building inside a chain link fence
Minuteman's
on the prairie,
contribution
Delta
to
6,
national
Ellsworth Air
defense
Force Base,
continues
South
today.
Dakota. Trucks and work vehicles
There is
on a
now
cement
an
area
updated
surrounded
version
by
in the
prairie,
field
Sierra
known as
38,
the
Malmstrom Air
Minuteman
Force
3.
Base, Montana.
This
Looking
version is
down a
slated
tube at
to
a
be
missile,
kept
2 people in
operational
hard
at
hats
least
working
through
on
the
it.
year
Launch facility
2050.
trainer, F.E. Warren Air
The
Force Base,
Minuteman's role,
Wyoming.
protecting our
2
nation,
people in green
will continue
uniforms sitting at
into
a
the
desk with
foreseeable
computer
future.
monitors. A special thanks to interviews and script, Chris Wilkinson, Park Ranger. Narrator, photographs, and editor, Michael Hosking, Cultural Resources Specialist. Oral history interview, William Bielmeyer, local landowner and owner of Bravo 7. In-house film and historic photographs, United States Air Force Office of Civil Engineering, Ellsworth Air Force Base Real Estate Office, Ellsworth Air Force Base 90th Space Wing, F.E. Warren Air Force Base, historic photographs and motion pictures, Library of Congress, National Archives. Background music provided by Cora, conductor Randy Edelman, orchestration Greg McRitchie. Fort Battle, conductor Daniel Carlin, orchestrators Guy Daigle, Brad Decter, Jake Smalley, Bobby Musingo. Courier, conductor Randy Edelman, orchestration Greg McRitchie. Pieces of a Story, conductor Randy Edelman, orchestration Greg McRitchie. British Arrival, conductor Randy Edelman, orchestration Greg McRitchie. Credit music provided by Little Boxes, The Grubers, F.E. Warren Air Force Base. Captain Roland Stoneman, 12-string guitar, and Captain Malcolm McGowan, guitar and banjo. First Lieutenant George Thiessen, washtub bass and guitar. Captain Wallace Odd, vocal spoons and woodblock. This is a production of the National Park Service, Minuteman Missile National Historic Site.